Climate Change in Humans by Emma Smith. Let's start out by defining climate change. Climate change is a change in global climate patterns. Scientists have been studying the Earth's climate for nearly 200 years. Changes in temperature, precipitation patterns, and sea level are steady changes in the climate system. Climate change will impact us directly. It will also impact us nationally and globally. Some examples of how climate change can affect Earth's climate is through health, agriculture, air, water, energy production, land, our houses, and recreation. Human activities are the main cause for climate change. Humans are making extreme weather events more frequent and worse. Things don't get progressively worse in a straight line. Rather, things are fine until they are not. Climate change is not a future problem, it is a now problem. The increase of carbon dioxide leads to the increase in global warming. This increase is mostly due to the burning of fossil fuels. If you take a look to my chart at the left, you can see the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere from 1960 to 2021. If you take a look, it is showing it per million. You can see just how much carbon dioxide is in the air and how much it is increasing. Take a look at the chart I have here. The blue line shows the satellite measurements of the global monthly average temperature. The orange line is the annual average temperature from the surface thermometer. Here you can clearly see that Earth is warming. As you can see, the line steadily goes up diagonally. So, how do scientists predict future climate change? Well, predictions of future climate require predictions of how radiant forcing will evolve. Radiative forcing is an imposed change in planetary energy balance. Predicting this comes down to predicting how much greenhouse gas and aerosol will be put into the atmosphere each year from human activities. The amount of greenhouse gas released by people is determined by the total amount of goods consumed. Greenhouse gases are the gases in Earth's atmosphere that trap heat. They let sunlight pass, but they prevent the heat that the sunlight brings from leaving. One example of how climate change can affect people directly is through our property. Climate change has been making rainfall more extreme for decades, but it was only in 2015 that the rainfall got so bad it destroyed houses. One house's value dropped by nearly $500,000. Here I have a chart for property value of a house in Texas after a flood. Another example of how climate change will affect people directly is through property taxes. For example, property taxes are assessed based on the value of the property. So as the value of homes in a community goes down, in response to this, the taxes collected go down too. I know you may think, so what if this funding goes down? Well, these things fund things like schools, fire departments, hospitals, and roads. So if these things don't have the proper funding, then they go down in value. In response to this, it starts a feedback loop. First, the neighborhood floods, property taxes decline, social decay, then people leave. Then it starts all over again where property taxes start to decline again, which leads to the neighborhood disintegrating. Another way climate change can affect people directly is through increases in the intensity of extreme weather events, such as heat waves and floods. This can increase losses to property, cause heat-related deaths, and make insurance even more expensive. Now let's talk about how climate change can affect national economies. Climate change increases temperature and increases droughts. An example of this is the 2018 California wildfire season, which consisted of a total of 8,527 fires. If you check out the chart I provided for California average temperatures from 1895 to 2018, you can easily see how climate change has affected California. Another example of this is Lyme disease. Lyme disease increases with climate change. Lyme disease has nearly doubled since 1991. The number of reported cases of Lyme disease has increased in the Northeast and Upper Midwest over time. Some states now report 50 to 110 more cases of Lyme disease per 100,000 people than they did in 1991. I provided a chart of Lyme disease for the United States on the left here. Another example of this is rising sea level. Climate change is increasing sea level. Rising sea level threatens coastal communities and ecosystems. Cities on the coast are spending money to prepare for sea level rise and more destructive hurricanes. Miami Beach is spending $500 million to elevate streets and install pumps to help the impacts of more water. The city of Venice spent $6.2 billion over the last few decades to build barriers against high water. An example of how climate change will affect us globally is ocean acidification. Ocean acidification is the ongoing decrease in the pH value of the Earth's ocean caused by the uptake of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. About 1 billion people rely on the ocean as their primary source of protein. If this amount of protein available for human consumption from the ocean decreases because of the changes in ocean chemistry, there is no way to fix it. Another example of how climate change will affect us globally is the thawing of permafrost and methane hydrates, which would release huge amounts of greenhouse gases into the air, leading to additional warming and acceleration of climate change. Another example is the increasing temperatures itself. Extreme heat reduces how much time we can spend outside. It can also have major effects on our health and can lead to the death of many. I have a chart on the side here that shows heat-related deaths in the United States from 1979 to 2018. Going up the side, it is per million. Go ahead and take a look for yourself. Warmer temperatures increase the frequency, intensity, and duration of heat waves, which can cause major health risks. For example, climate change can impact human health by worsening air and water quality. This can increase the spread of certain diseases. Global climate change has already had so many effects on the environment. For example, glaciers have shrunk. Ice on rivers and lakes is breaking up earlier. Loss of sea ice, accelerated sea level rise, and longer, more intense heat waves. Carbon dioxide stays in the air for centuries. So large emissions of carbon dioxide in this century will cause the Earth's temperatures to remain elevated for thousands of years. This means that the decisions we make in the next few decades will determine the climate for thousands of years to come. We can't expect the cost of future warming to cost so much more. We need to inform people of the effects of climate change, the effects that it will have on people in the future. We need to adopt smart policies that actually address the problem so that this is not a disaster in the future. I hope everything I presented to you helps to convince you that we need to do something. All the effects I've shown you will happen if we don't fix this. Climate change will change the oceans that we love. Climate change will affect our houses, our properties. It'll affect so much, even our health. It can cause death. We need to work together to preserve our ecosystems and our life for future generations. Here are my references. Here are the rest of my references. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.